Hello, everyone. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for supporting our resource here, expanding our Sangha by liking and subscribing. So before we get going here, if you could do that, that would be immensely helpful to growing this resource, yeah? And we continue with the opening of the eyes. Erroneous teachings such as these are too numerous to be counted. As you recall, we left off in the last video about erroneous teachings outside of Shakyamuni's scholarship, or the scholarship of Shakyamuni's teachings of the Lotus Sutra et al., and Nichiren pointing out the deviations. He does this consistently, so I'm not going to delve into that too much here, just that he points it out once again in the context of understanding what is Gohonzon, and what is Gohonzon actually the aim of our practice, the opening of our Buddha mind. That is Gohonzon, right? As opposed to the scroll, the mandala that Nichiren created in order to focus all of our consciousnesses on opening that Buddha-ness in our minds. Gohonzon. Two different things, yes? Erroneous teachings such as these are too numerous to be counted. Their adherents pay as much respect and honor to the teachers who propound them as the deities pay to the Lord Chakra, or the court ministers pay to the ruler of the empire. But not a single person who adheres to these 95 types of higher or lower non-Buddhist teachings ever escapes from the cycle of birth and death. And keep in mind, and I apologize in advance, my throat is really bothering me today. Most of you know I've been through neck surgery and I'm still healing, so there's a lot of swelling in my throat and it's causing me problems. So I apologize if that's distracting. But when we read in Buddhism about non-Buddhist teachings, really, in Shakyamuni's day, non-Buddhist teachings included everything from just all the various forms and incarnations, if you will, of Hinduism and the Vedic texts, and Brahmanism, which includes a whole scope. I mean, Brahmins are actually a caste of society. For contemporary understanding, the elites, the scholars, the academics were the Brahmins, still are in India, yeah? And so their teachings, although they might all fall under the umbrella of Brahmanism, huge scope. A lot of the same basic core deifications, concepts of environment and our relationship to it, via, again, the personages, right, of Vishnu and so on and so forth. But by the time of Shakyamuni's day, my goodness, hundreds of varieties, folklore, holy this, holy that. I mean, it was very magical thinking, right? Basically, it boils down to, especially the lower castes, were simply victims of life. Life happened to them. They had no control over life whatsoever. And the Brahmins were the one who told them, well, you will be this the rest of your life. You have no choice. And that was, if you'll recall, pretty much the definition of karma. If a Brahmin told you you were going to be, your ancestors throughout time were people who cobbled together shoes, and you then can be nothing else in your life but a shoe cobbler, and if you're not talented enough to make the shoes, then you're going to be procuring the leather for the shoes, or cutting you're in some way going to be in that same caste. That's your karma, right? until Shakyamuni comes along and says, no, that's not how karma works. Karma, if we're going to use that word, let's redefine it as the energy that is you from moment to moment, and you are responsible. You can influence. You can either express that same karma without just letting it happen, just because it's your freight train of karma, or you can actually get involved in your own life, and you can modify that engine of life, your engine of life, the engine of life, as it instantiates through you. You can take control. Karma is just action. It's just what your momentum of life is doing from moment to moment to moment. So intervene. Influence. It's not written in stone. Yeah. Yeah. That's why a lot of people thought, Shakyamuni, shut the hell up. You don't empower people. We have total control over them. Now you're giving them a sense that they're actually engaged, have agency in their life. Shut up. We have them all docilely controlled like happy little cattle and sheep. And you come along and tell them they can think for themselves? Shut the hell up. Yeah, they didn't like Shakyamuni. A lot of people, anyway. But a lot of people thought, really? Wow. And, that discovery isn't so much a discovery as it is a realization, because that's always been the truth. So when somebody tells you the truth and you think, duh, we work really hard to not know truth. We pile all sorts of magical thoughts and misinterpretations on top of the truth till we convince ourselves that what we've constructed is the truth. But somebody comes along and goes, no, the emperor's naked. Oh, yeah, I can see his thingy. Right? You've always known. You've just convinced yourself otherwise. Well, this is the story of Buddhism. Anyway, side rant, yeah? So Nichiren is pointing out that even though there's these followers who are adhering to these teachers, the fact of the matter is they're never going to get to the truth because they're actively working against it. Right? Makes sense. Those who follow teachers of the better sort will, after 2 or 3 rebirths, in other words, after consistently influencing your moment-to-moment instantiations, your future moments will instantiate the influence of your agency. They'll fall into the evil paths, while those who follow evil teachers will fall into evil paths the very next moment. In other words, they'll be stuck in the Avicii hell, constantly adhering to falsehoods. They will always be miserable. But people who follow the better ones, that are a little closer to the truth, they might not fall immediately into hell and sense some kind of hope. Otherwise, it's a hopeless existence. And yet the main point of these non-Buddhist teachings constitutes an important means of entry into Buddhism. Even though they're flawed, they're full of misleading interpretations, right? Somebody commented recently, they felt the need to tell me that if they believe in Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, they believe in the Daimoku, then eventually they'll reach Buddhahood. The comment was probably in reference to every now and again, I get a little upset with groups and sects out there that are spreading misinformation, albeit within the context of Nichiren doctrine and Shakyamuni's Buddhism, Lotus Sutra Buddhism, yes? And just as a point of clarification, I understand that even if they're misled, if they're chanting and they have a good conviction to attain Buddhahood, even though they're misled and they are following polluted teachings, they'll attain Buddhahood someday, but not with that teaching. Understand what Nichiren is saying here. He's saying that those teachings, as flawed as they are a stepping stone, perhaps even a necessary stepping stone, because you don't know somebody's life. You don't know what they need or we need. We don't really know what we need for that aha moment, right? We just come to it via our life experience. And some life experiences may need to go through that misleading, thwarted, miscolored, bad teachers, albeit within the realm of Buddhism, in order to then find and be able to discern a good teacher simply because of it. I heard in a business class one time in school that sometimes the best teachers when it comes to management, business management, are terrible managers. Because from terrible managers, we can clearly see the mistakes they're making and the things that are productive and non-productive, and that, in fact, we then experience and teach ourselves that's not the way to go. And whether there's a better opportunity demonstrated to us or not, we at least are encouraged and inspired to find a better way to go. So those bad teachers, bad managers, are actually sometimes the best teachers. They prohibit you from going down bad pathways, yes? Same is true in Buddhism, as far as I can see. Sometimes we get inspired by the wrong people, and they bring to us many new information about Buddhism, since that's our topic. But some things just go, right? You know something's wrong with that, but I'm into this Buddhism, so let me keep doing it. And you do it, and after a while, your enlightenment grows, your Buddha mind grows, even though you're following erroneous teachings, and you break free from those mistaken teachings, understandings, and you get your own insight, your own aha moment, yes? This is why there's so many of us that are independent Buddhist practitioners. Ultimately, Buddhism is a personal practice anyway. So, no wonder that so many of us are now taking responsibility as independent Buddhist practitioners, yeah? Don't have to be associated with a corporation, right? Sects, groups, secular or temple-related, whatever. Always throughout the world, in any form of corporation, the first imperative of a corporation is the corporation. And that's absolutely not Buddhism. The first imperative of Nichiren, Tendai, Shakyamuni, is the enlightenment of others. We chant it every time we recite Gangyo, right? I've pointed this out before. Every moment I think to myself, how can I encourage and support other people doing as I have done, attaining Buddhahood? This is the goal of Buddhism. Of course, it starts with your own, right? Just like in an airplane, if you've ever flown in a commercial jet, they'll tell you when that oxygen mask drops, the first thing you do is put it on yourself. Because our instinct is put it on the children, put it on the people we love. But if you pass out, then you're no good to those people. And they may not be able to do it for themselves, so you really screwed the pooch, as it were. First things first. You want to be a good bodhisattva? You want to be helpful to others? Then know what it is you're being helpful about. Be that first. Then and only then can you be actually bodhisattva to others. Another side rant. A lot of side rants today. Okay, so when he talks about non-Buddhist teachings, we understand that those are under the rubric of Buddhist teachings, but they're mistaken, they're incomplete, they're even completely off the mark, but they're still within the rubric of Buddhism. So he's saying that even though people are being misled and they may not be practicing correctly, their practice alone, the bit of influence that they're managing to inculcate into their Gohonzon, their Buddha mind, will eventually lead them to the clarity. They just, that's inevitable. We talk about seeds of Buddhahood. Well, right? Okay. Some of them state, quote, 1,000 years from now, the Buddha will appear in the world, end quote. While others state, quote, 100 years from now, the Buddha will appear in the world, end quote. Again, this is this horribly mistaken idea of what a Buddha is. It's not like some imbued individual who appears in the world and saves everyone. That's religion. That is not Buddhism. Buddha is you and me. It's our mind. It's Gohonzon. You see? The Nirvana Sutra remarks, quote, all of the non-Buddhist scriptures and writings in society are themselves Buddhist teachings, not non-Buddhist teachings, end quote. In other words, anything that sends you inward as a teaching to analyze, to come to terms with who's driving. In other words, contends with the idea that you have agency. Isn't that the primary directive of Siddhartha Gautama? Siddhartha Suddhodana? Siddhartha pre-enlightenment and then post-enlightenment? His mission, his charge, his discovery, his enlightenment is based upon this very idea that we're not victims, that life does not happen to us, that we are actually driving our experience of life. What an earth-shattering realization. And how that manifests in our lives day to day, that's the topic of Buddhism. How do we stay in that mindset? That mindset is what? That is Buddha. In the Lotus Sutra, it is written, quote, before the multitude, they seem possessed of the three poisons or manifest the signs of distorted views. My disciples in this manner use expedient means to liberate all living beings from those misunderstandings. Yeah? It says save here, but that's cultural bias, isn't it? Thirdly, we come to Buddhism. One should know that the world-honored one of the Great Enlightenment is a great leader for all living beings, a great eye for them, a great bridge, a great helmsman, driver, a great field of good fortune. Right? He's describing what Gohonzon looks like, what this mind of enlightenment looks like. The four sages and the three ascetics of the Confucian and Brahmanical scriptures and teachings are referred to as sages. But in fact, they are no more than ordinary people who have not yet been able to eradicate the three categories of illusion. They still operate within the realm of the ego. I'm better than this, this is better than that, right? Anytime there's this equation of one or another, you're in the domain of possessions, of samsara, of the ego, constructions of identity. They are referred to as wise men, but in fact they are no more than infants who cannot understand the principles of cause and effect. There it is. With their teachings for a ship, could one ever cross over the sea of sufferings of birth and death? with their teachings for a bridge could one ever escape from the maze of the six paths. But the Buddha, our great teacher, has advanced beyond even transmigration with change and advance, let alone transmigration with differences and limitations. He has wiped out even the very root of fundamental darkness, let alone the illusions of thought and desire that are as minor as branches and leaves. Understand the Buddha he's talking about. What did he call him? The great teacher? Yeah, but the Buddha, our great teacher, again, I remind you, the Buddha is not a person. The Buddha, our great teacher, is, as I constantly remind you, is ourselves. We teach ourselves, our mind, with our observations and witnessing of process. We teach our mind. Right? It's kind of a fallacy in language when we call somebody a teacher and we are a student. We use it in regular, everyday identification, right? But in truth, no matter how great the teacher is, who does the learning? Who does the teaching? We do. We can, with our perception, our insights, our aha moments, either perceive a truth, whether somebody else is saying it or not. It is us hearing it, inculcating that information, and making something of a clarity with it. So the teaching goes on here. Well, that's our Buddha-ness. I've had conversations recently with some of you, right? We think in samsara that certain types of behavior that we've hung on to or always habitually have exhibited have actually helped us gain insights that led to enlightenment. And it may very much seem that way. It's easy to think that way. Yeah, I have this habit, it's not great, but it helps me make these realizations. And I'm not saying you're entirely wrong. What I want to point out is that in those behaviors, what's actually happening, the fact that you can learn and teach yourself from that place, that behavior, is because of the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. Buddhahood is in all of those realms. Right? So if you think, well, when I get really depressed, that's when I get insights. It's not the depression that's giving you insight. It's the Buddhahood within the depression that's saying, hello, turn the light on, get out of here. That's what's giving you insight, not the depression. Right? So we make the mistake of thinking that we achieve Buddhahood because of the depression. No. The Buddhahood's always there. It's just that for whatever reason, when you're depressed, whatever your karmic engine is, you have a more decisive mechanism to awaken your mind when you are in certain life states. And you may perceive it as depression, but it may be 100,000 other things. You just group them all into that. It's always your Buddhahood and your Bodhisattva natures, even your learning and realization natures, that make you a keen observer that then lead to your Bodhisattvaness, which picks you up by the bootstraps and says, make a change, Buddhahood. Right? 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. Always happening, moment to moment to moment to moment. Buddhism, in a way, is a thought adjustment. It takes your samsaric mind and says, observe better, witness better what is actually going on in the construct of your life, moment to moment to moment to moment to moment, and train your Buddhahood to get buff, to get stronger, to make its presence known within all of those other realms constantly. This is the repetition, the practice of Buddhism. Makes sense? He has wiped out even the very root of fundamental darkness, let alone the illusions of thought and desire that are as minor as branches and leaves. Basically what I've just described. This Buddha, from the time of enlightenment at the age of 30 until his passing at the age of 80, now he's talking about Shakyamuni Buddha, expounded his sacred teachings for a period of 50 years. Each word, each phrase he spoke is true. Not a sentence, not a verse is false. The words of the sages and worthies preserved in the scripture or text and teachings of Confucianism and Brahmanism, as we have noted, are free of error, and the words match the spirit in which they were spoken. Important to say. They were all aiming for the same thing. Right? Just as you and I have different ways of communicating our understanding of something, it doesn't mean we're distinctly true or false, more true or more false. It's about the attitude and the intent, right? You don't have to be the best teacher. You just have to be the most determined, honest teacher that you can be. Because where does the teaching happen? In the student. But how much more true is this the case with the Buddha, who had spoken not a false word for countless kalpas? In other words, now it's not Shakyamuni. This is Buddha-ness talking, and it's always perfectly clear, because that's the nature of Buddha. In comparison to the non-Buddhist scriptures and teachings, the doctrines that he expounded in a period of 50 or so years represent the great vehicle, the true words of the great man. Now he's talking about Shakyamuni. I know it's confusing. Even the author seems to be incapable of dissecting the two or identifying the two, right? It gets conflated in these translations. No wonder people are confused. Everything that he preached, Shakyamuni, from the dawn of his enlightenment, Buddhahood, it's in the sentence, until the evening that he entered into nirvana, is none other than the truth, because he was a mouthpiece for his Buddha-ness, and Buddha-ness in general, our Buddha-ness. However, when we examine the 80,000 teachings of Buddhism expounded during a period of 50 or so years and recorded in the texts, we find that they fall into various categories, such as Hinayana, early Mahayana, later Mahayana, right? Minor vehicles, great vehicle, so on and so forth. Provisional and true sutras, exoteric, esoteric teachings, detailed and rough discourses, true words and false words, well, not really false words, but words that don't lead directly to enlightenment, you might say. Correct and incorrect views, now he's including more than, he's talking about the 80,000 texts that were created later. Misinterpretations, bound to happen. But among these, the Lotus Sutra alone represents the correct teaching of Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of teachings, the truthful words of the Buddhas of the three existences, and the 10 directions. In other words, the Lotus Sutra, unlike the rest of the earlier teachings, expedient means, though that many claim to be the superior teachings, when it's just like learning subjects in school. There's stepping stones, yeah? But by the time you get to the Lotus Sutra, now Shakyamuni wasn't teaching Buddhahood to people's capacity, to their ability to learn, much like you wouldn't teach calculus to a third grade elementary school class of students, right? They're not prepared. They don't have the capacity to understand the concepts, the equations, the mathematics, even the concepts within calculus. Yes, I hear you. Certain few might, but generally, right? The world-honored one of the Great Enlightenment designated a specific period of the preceding 40 years and more, and he defined the various sutras preached during that period, numerous as the sands of the Ganges, as the sutras in which he had not yet revealed the truth, quote unquote. Right? This is in the Innumerable Meanings Sutra, the opening to the Lotus Sutra, and it's actually in the Lotus Sutra. During these 40 or more years, I've not yet revealed the truth. Now I'm going to do so. That is the Lotus Sutra, the one vehicle. Right? Shariputra, there are not two or three. There is only one vehicle. This is it. This is the teaching I myself used to attain Buddhahood. Whatever your capacity, this is where you need to end up. Self-realization, Lotus Sutra. He designated the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge Kyo, preached during the 8 years as the sutra in which he, quote, now must reveal the truth, end quote. Thus many treasures Buddha came forth from beneath the earth to testify that, quote, all that you have expounded in the Myoho Renge Kyo is the truth, end quote. And the Buddhas who are emanations of Shakyamuni, all the personages that he created for the expedient means in the prior teachings to help guide people's mental capacities, gathered together and extended their long tongues up to the Brahma heaven in testimony. Right? That's directly from the Lotus Sutra. These words are perfectly clear, perfectly understandable, brighter than the sun on a clear day, or like the full moon at midnight. Look up to them and have confidence in them. And when you turn away, cherish them in your heart. Doesn't that mirror exactly what I'm telling you when you sit in front of your altar and you open your altar up so you can look at the mandala, your portal to Gohonzon, your focal object to focus your attention, your mind's attention, the 8 consciousnesses, to perceive the 9th consciousness, which is the root of the engine of life. Yeah? We do that, we achieve it, and then when we close our altar and walk away, we need to maintain that picture of Gohonzon, that mind of full perception within ourselves. That's what he means by heart. Right? In Eastern terms, heart, mind, they're linked. They're almost like a single, 2 aspects of the same organ. So when he says heart, he's not talking about love or your thumping heart alone. He's talking about your life in samsara, maintaining your life in enlightenment. The Lotus Sutra contains 2 important teachings. Only 2, Nichiren? The Dharma Analysis Treasury, Establishment of Truth, Precepts, Dharma Characteristics, and the 3 treatises schools have never heard of even so much as the name of these teachings. The Flower Garland, the True Word schools, on the other hand, have surreptitiously stolen these doctrines and made them the heart of their own teachings, but still within the limitations of those particular teachings. So they're not fully expressed. They don't really understand. The doctrine of the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment of life is found in only one place, hidden in the depths of the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching of the Lotus Sutra. And we chant that in Gongo every day. It's in our meditations, isn't it? The profound truth hidden in the Honmon, in the essential teachings of the Lotus Sutra. Right? Nagarjuna and Vasubandhu were aware of it, but they did not bring it forth into the light. They didn't name it. They didn't demonstrate it because people had to come to it and they weren't prepared. They didn't even know how to understand what that might be. Tendai Chiche alone embraced it and kept it ever in mind. Tendai knew it, and he talked about the Threefold Lotus Sutra constantly, but everything he taught was about how to prepare oneself for this insight. Obviously, there's an insight in that conversation, but he never described the insight, just how to get there. People weren't ready yet. The doctrine of the 3,000 realms in a single thought of life begins with the concept of the mutual possession of the 10 worlds, or 10 realms. Once you can grasp, as we all do easily, that we traverse all these moods and emotions, these places of reference from which we observe the world, right? If you're in a bad mood, the world looks a certain way. If you're in a cheery mood, there's a lot of things that would normally bother you that don't even seem to appear. And your focus is on the things that bring you joy. The world hasn't changed. You have changed. Your perceptive mind has changed. Right? So when we sit down, we talk about the 10 worlds or 10 realms, we easily, oh, I get that. Oh, man, yeah, so totally. But then we make the mistake of thinking that those are places we reside in. Oh, today I'm in the world of hell. Don't even talk to me. I'm just pissed at everything. No, you don't understand. By saying that, you are making a mental choice to remain in the Avicii hell. Stop it. You need not do that. That hell is available to you. Yep, it is for all of us. But why remain attached to it? That's the question you should be asking. And the truth of the matter is, 3,000 realms in a single thought moment means that you're never really just there, right? All of the other realms are within that realm. They're just not being heard or expressed or experienced. You're choosing to focus on one particular, which is an illusion as well, because there's, right? All of the others are there. Just a slight shift of perspective. Oh, I should do this. Maybe it changes your life. Maybe it just changes your mood. However dramatic the change, it's not because you were in hell. It's because one of the other realms managed to, over here, get your attention. This is the human mind. This is samsara. Our practice of chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo is to say, I'm instantiating Buddha-ness now, this moment, and train our Buddha nature, our Gohonzon mind, to constantly be on the lookout for our attachment to other realms. And pull us away. Look. Enlightenment. Ah, yeah. That is the practice of Buddhism. The Dharma Analysis Treasury, Establishment of Truth, and Precept School derive their teachings from the Agama Sutras, those earlier teachings. I'm going over time. we'll end this paragraph. They are aware only of the 6 worlds and know nothing of the other 4. So in the Agama Sutras, they know about hell, hunger, animality, right? They know about humanity, nin, anger, manipulation, backstabbing, and even rapture. But that's where they end. To them, rapture is the ultimate. Well, rapture is a fake. It's maybe the feeling of an aha moment, but without the substance. Rapture is just the experience. It's not the achievement, the understanding, the knowing. It takes learning and realization, bodhisattva and Buddhahood, those 4. Now you can change your life. But those early sutras, they didn't even discuss those realms. To many of you, that may be the first time you've heard this. They declare that all the 10 directions there is only one Buddha, and do not even preach that there is any other Buddha in any of the 10 directions. In other words, there's only one vaulted personage to emulate. They're still stuck on a singular thing rather than understanding the totality of the universe's Buddha-ness. Of the principle that, quote, all sentient beings alike possess the Buddha nature, end quote, they, of course, say nothing at all. Because to them, it's an unfathomable goal. They refuse to acknowledge that even a single person possesses the Buddha nature. It's just something you're going to have to work to achieve. And usually that happens after you die, so you don't have the burden of proof. Childish nonsense, yeah? In spite of this, one will sometimes hear members of the precepts and establishment of truth schools declaring that there are Buddhas in the 10 directions, or that all living beings possess the Buddha nature. They'll say it, but it's not in the teachings. This is because the teachers of these schools, who appeared after the passing away of the Buddha, had stolen these Mahayana doctrines and incorporated them into the teachings of their own schools. Isn't that interesting? So they're kludging together something that appears to be complete, but it's very incomplete. To illustrate, I'll go a little further. To illustrate, in the period before the appearance of Buddhism, the proponents of the non-Buddhist teachings in India were not so bound up in their own views. But after the appearance of the Buddha, when they had listened to and observed the Buddha's teachings, they became aware of the shortcomings of their own doctrines. Isn't that what I was saying earlier? When you don't know better, you don't know better. Somebody comes along and goes, Emperor's naked, now you can't deny it, right? Oh, yeah, he's so right. They then conceived the clever idea of appropriating Buddhist teachings and incorporating them into their own doctrines, and as a result, they fell into even deeper error than before. Well, that's a great idea, what he just said. I'm just going to say it's been in my stuff all along, and my 1972 Toyota Beater will be just like a Ferrari, because I'll put that Ferrari red on it. Stupid. People, you want to understand attachment? There it is. Should I do a... That's not fair to Toyota. I was thinking of doing an analogy video. These are examples of the errors known as appropriating Buddhism or plagiarizing Buddhism. Yeah, we see this all over the place. In many religions today, they appropriate many of the rhetorics of Buddhism, yes, of expedient means. But that doesn't make them Buddhist. The same thing occurred in the case of non-Buddhist scriptures in China. Before Buddhism was brought to China, Confucianism and Taoism were rather naive and childish affairs, but in the latter Han, Buddhism was introduced to China and challenged the native doctrines. In time, as Buddhism became more popular, there were certain Buddhist monks who, because they had broken the precepts, were forced to return to secular life, or who elected to join forces with the native creeds. Through such men, Buddhist doctrines were stolen and incorporated into the Confucian and Taoist teachings. Fascinating, yeah? All right. On that note, I think that's a good stopping point. We will continue tomorrow, most likely. Oops, dropping stuff. Give my throat, hopefully. All right. Thank you for being here. Just a reminder to please like and subscribe. That's so important to expanding our Sangha. It's part of the effort of propagation, yeah? If you can, it's super, super important to support this effort to keep us going, to, buy an ebook or several on threefoldlotus.com that infuses us with some financial energy to keep going, yes? Of course, the print books on lulu.com, the Gohonzon store, please. If you don't have a correct copy of a Nichiren inscribed mandala, please get one. And use all the free stuff that's on threefoldlotus.com. And here, don't forget, go to the home page of this channel. There's a separate search in the middle of the home page. Not that YouTube search, but the homepage search. And you can put in words from karma to the 9 consciousnesses to what have you. And, out of the thousands of videos on this channel, you'll get a small grouping of whether in the title or the description that particular keyword is used. And that will help you as a study resource, right? So you don't have to go through this compendium. That's an idea. I know there's several playlists on this channel, but maybe, as I've done with the books, I'll make playlists under these specific, I think I've begun to do that anyway, but I'll have to double check. So that, as I've said before, you look at the hundreds and hundreds of letters that Nichiren wrote, and they're not addressed in a way that you would know they cover a certain aspect of Buddhist teaching. Like I said, letter to Jijobo doesn't give you any clue that it's about the characters of the Daimoku and the entity of the Gohonzon. How would you know letter to Jijobo? Oh, that must be it. All right, so this is why I started making these collections under the guise of a specific topic for a book. I'm trying to do the same thing with the playlists, but maybe I need to get even more specific on that. That's not a bad idea. I hope I remember from here to the house. Age and memory. All right, enough blah, blah, blah. Thank you so much for participating. Please take care of your health, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.